but it reveals weight you were holding alone. It shows you where you overgave, where you stayed silent too long. Exposure hurts, but it also frees, because once you see the load clearly, you can choose to put it down. Strength after abandonment looks different. Strength after abandonment is quieter, more grounded. It doesn't prove anything. It protects. You stop trying to be impressive. You focus on being stable. That shift matters because real power is not loud recovery. It's steady presence. Choosing yourself when loyalty has no answers. Loyalty without truth becomes self-neglect. And there comes a moment when choosing yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. You stop waiting for clarity from others. You give it to yourself. That choice changes everything. You revived. You adapted. You evolved. You survived confusion. You adapted to loss. You evolved under pressure. Say it again. You are not who you were. And that is not a failure. It's evidence of endurance. Taking back the steering wheel of your life. Waiting put life on hold. Choice puts it back in motion. You stop reacting. You start directing. Not perfectly, intentionally. That is how power returns. Are you when you stop waiting? This question matters because waiting shaped you. Now imagine who you become when you stop. That answer leads forward. You don't need their version of the Esther or why stop waiting for an explanation that may never come. They spent years waiting for someone else to make sense of what happened, for answers that might never arrive. But the truth is, you don't need them to explain themselves to live. Waiting for someone else to validate your experience keeps you stuck. Hands your life over to people who may never care enough to give it back. You are allowed to move forward without a full story. Your life does not depend on their honesty. And when you stop waiting, freedom quietly begins. Approval is not the same as peace. You may crave agreement. You may hope someone sees your side and says it's okay. But approval is not peace. It doesn't ease the tension in your chest. It doesn't stop the questions or the sleepless nights. Peace comes from inside. From accepting what you cannot change and realizing that comfort from others is a bonus, not a requirement. Your healing does not require their honesty. Don't need someone else to tell the truth to start healing. You can rebuild even when their version of events is incomplete. Healing is a decision you make for yourself, not something handed over by someone else. You are allowed to stop waiting. You are allowed to create clarity on your own terms. Your life does not need their permission to move forward. Letting go without making noise. Letting go doesn't always require confrontation. It doesn't need grand gestures or dramatic statements. You can release silently. You can leave without fighting. Calm detachment is powerful. It shows that your strength does not depend on recognition. It exists quietly, steadily, and undeniably. Closing the door without slamming it. You can end chapters without burning bridges. You can choose finality without chaos. Closing the door without anger or noise is maturity. It signals that you respect yourself enough to move on, and you are no longer waiting for permission to do so. It is quiet. It is firm. It is final. When you stop explaining yourself, you start healing. Every time you feel the urge to justify your decisions, ask yourself, who needs the explanation? Not everyone deserves your story. Not everyone will understand it. When you stop explaining, you stop giving away your energy. You reclaim your time, your peace, and your power. And that is where real healing begins. The life you build after a silence. What comes after the answers or the absence of them. Life does not pause for closure, even after answers arrive or never arrive at. All time keeps moving. What comes next is not dictated by someone else's honesty. It is yours to shape. You get to decide the next chapter, even without clarity. You can choose purpose. You can step into life intentionally, not reactively. This is where hope begins, not the fragile hope of waiting, but the strong hope of action. Choosing direction instead of waiting. Waiting teaches patience, but it also keeps you stagnant. You can choose direction instead, even if you don't know exactly what's coming. You can pick a path that feels right to you. Decision replaces hesitation. Action replaces fear. You stop letting the past dictate your every move. You start creating forward momentum. One small step at a time. This is yours now. Say it aloud. This is yours now. It is not borrowed from someone else's choices. It is not dependent on explanations or apologies. Your life belongs to you, and claiming it fully is not selfish. It is necessary. Every choice, every day, reinforces that ownership. This is yours to live, building a future that doesn't look back. The past can guide you, but it cannot chain you. You are building a life that does not depend on repeating old patterns. Your steps are deliberate. Your focus is forward. You carry lessons, not regrets. You honor the past without letting it control your future. And that is progress in its truest form. Your future is not an apology waiting to happen. Your next chapter is not about waiting for permission. It is not about seeking forgiveness or explanation from anyone. It is your own. It is intentional. It is free. You do not owe clarity to anyone. Your life exists beyond the need for approval. Walking forward without carrying the past. Let go of what no longer serves you. Leave behind the weight of unanswered questions. When you walk forward lightly, you allow space for possibility, growth, and joy. Step by step, day by day, you move into what is yours to live. Final message: you were never left. You were forced to be. What you thought was abandonment was transformation. What felt like being left behind was actually a push forward. The absence forced growth you didn't ask for, but needed. You were not abandoned. You were challenged. You were reshaped. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from the moments we feel most lost, and in that loss, transformation quietly begins. You did not break. You changed. You didn't fall apart. You evolved. Pain did not defeat you. It taught you endurance. It built resilience you could never have gained otherwise. Strength is not always about survival. It's about adaptation, and you adapted. This is where you take the story back. You are no longer a passenger in your own life. You get to reclaim your narrative, decisions, actions, direction. They are yours to choose. No one else can dictate how you respond to what happened. This is empowerment in its purest form, and it begins with claiming your story, forged by fire, not destroyed by it. Every trial, every loss, every silence, it shaped you. It did not destroy you. You were stronger, sharper, and wiser because of it. Like metal in the forge, pressure turned you into something more durable. You are not broken. You are forged. Stand up. Let go. Move forward. Now is the moment to act. Stand up. Let go of what held you back. Move forward with purpose. No hesitation. No excuses. Your life is ready. You survived the silence. You survived the waiting. Now live. Repeat it. You survived the silence. You survived the waiting. Now live. Your story is not over. Your life is not on hold. It is yours to claim. And bridges don't need to be beautiful. They just need to hold. Learning to function with the cracks showing. Strength is often misunderstood. People think it means being whole again, but real strength looks cracked, still moving, still trying. You show up tired. You do your best with what you have. You stop hiding the damage because hiding takes too much energy. You accept that you are not perfect and don't need to be. Cracks don't mean broken, they mean pressure happened, and surviving pressure changes you. It gives you depth you didn't ask for, but earn. What do you become when the future disappears? When the future you plan vanishes, identity shakes. You ask hard questions. Who am I now? What matters without certainty? You stop living for later and start living for now. Because later is no longer promised, this moment forces. Honesty. You meet yourself without dreams attached, and that meeting is uncomfortable, but it is also real. You become someone who can stand without guarantees. That kind of self-knowledge stays with you. Strength isn't loud, it just keeps showing up. Strength dosen. T-shout. It doesn't demand attention. It wakes up when it doesn't want to. It keeps going when it's tired. Let me tell you something. Quiet effort builds more than noise ever could. Strength is showing up again, and again, and again. Not because you feel brave, but because stopping would cost more. That is the kind of strength that lasts. Still here, still breathing, still standing. Say it slowly. These words are not dramatic. They're powerful. They mean you survived days you thought you wouldn't. They mean something inside you refused to quit. You don't need to praise the pain, but you can respect what it didn't take from you. Being here is not small. It is proof. The years that change you without time doesn't ask for permission. Before it changes you, time moves forward without checking in. It reshapes you quietly. You don't notice it day to day, but one day you look back and realize you are different. Not better. Not worse. Just changed. Time works on you when you are busy surviving. It leaves marks you didn't plan, and those marks tell a story of endurance, becoming someone you never planned to be. You had an idea of who you would become. Life had other plans. You lost parts of yourself along the way, dreams, beliefs, expectations, but you also gained depth, awareness, strength you didn't ask for. The old version of you didn't disappear for nothing. It made room. And who you are now exists because of what you faced. Growth that happens quietly without applause. Growth is invisible. No one notices it. You don't get praise for holding yourself together, for learning to live with less, but quiet. Growth changes everything. It teaches patience, awareness, boundaries. You grow in silence, and silence shapes character. Even if no one claps, you know how far you've come. Rust forms slowly until one day it's everywhere. Rustosen. Appear overnight. It builds layer by layer. So does change. Years pass. Small moments add up. You adjust. You adapt. And one day you realize the past no longer fits. Not because it vanished, but because you outgrew it. Time doesn't heal. It reveals. Time doesn't fix wounds by itself. It shows what was already there. It reveals strength. It reveals limits. It strips away illusions and leaves truth behind. And truth, while uncomfortable, is useful, because once you see clearly, you stop pretending who you were versus who you became. There is a gap between those two people, and that gap holds your story. You don't go back. You carry forward. The contrast is not failure. It's proof of survival. The moment everything set, just another day until it wasn't. It started like any other day. Normal, uneventful, and then something interrupted it. Without warning. That is how turning points arrive. Quietly. You don't feel ready, but the moment arrives. Anyway, a luxury car pulling up with old silence inside. Car didn't match the past. It carried weight. Power, distance, unspoken history. Silence sat inside it. Heavy. It wasn't just a vehicle. It was a message. The past had returned. Without asking, get in. 3 words that changed everything. 3 words. No explanation. Not gentle. Not kind. Direct. They didn't invite. They commanded. Those words reopened wounds. You learned to live with. And everything inside you tightened. Why now? Why after all this time? Why now? Why wait so long? Questions rush in all at once. Anger, confusion, shock. You don't get time to prepare. You just feel. This is the moment when waiting ends, whether you're ready or not, when silence finally breaks without warning. Silence breaks suddenly, not gently. It doesn't ease you in. It drops truth without care. You sit with it, breathing shallow, because once silence breaks, nothing feels the same. Answers don't always ask for permission. Answers arrive on their own terms, not yours. They don't wait until you're ready. They don't soften themselves, and once they appear, you must face them. That is where the next chapter begins. Truth doesn't always come with apologies. The truth finally arrives, but it feels empty. You imagine truth will arrive like relief, like air after being underwater too long. But sometimes, when it finally shows up, it feels hollow. You expected weight to lift. Instead, it just shifts. Truth comes without warmth. Without care for how long you waited. You realize something painful here. Answers don't always heal the way you pictured. They explain what happened, but they don't undo it. They tell you facts, not comfort. And in that moment, you understand something hard. Truth can arrive late and still be real, but real doesn't always feel good. When answers don't sound like healing, you thought answers would settle your chest, that once you knew, peace would follow, but answers can sound cold. Flat, lifeless. They explain actions, not impact. They explain choices, not consequences. You learn that closure is not a cure. It's information. And information alone does not soothe pain. Sometimes it just removes doubt. That is when you stop chasing comfort from truth, because truth does not promise relief. It promises clarity. No apology, no explanation, no regret. No apology, no explanation. No regret. Say it slowly. These words hurt because they confirm something final. You were not misunderstood. You were ignored. There's a special pain in realizing no remorse is coming. No soft landing. No kindness. This is where many people get stuck, waiting for words that will never arrive, but waiting longer does not change silence. It only keeps you tied to it. Closure doesn't always bring peace. It brings clarity. Closure sounds gentle, but clarity is often sharp. Closure doesn't tuck you in. It wakes you up. It shows you what is, not what you hoped for, and that difference matters. Clarity removes false hope. It ends questions, and while it may sting at first, clarity gives you something peace cannot. Direction. Once you see clearly, you stop chasing what was never offered. Truth is a mirror, not a banded. Truth doesn't cover wounds. It reflects them. It shows you where you were hurt, where you stayed too long, where you hoped too hard. Mirrors are honest. They don't soften edges. Truth forces you to see yourself clearly, not as broken, but as someone who endured more than expected. And seeing yourself clearly is uncomfortable, but it's also freeing. Accepting reality without getting an apology. Acceptance is not agreement. It's release. You don't accept what happened because it was right. You accept it because holding on is costing you. You stop waiting for words that won't come. You stop needing someone else to fix what they broke. This is where anger begins to rise, not as chaos, but as truth finally spoken. Inside you, the anger. You were never allowed to feel the anger you learned to bury. Instead of feel, anger didn't disappear. It went quiet. You buried it to survive. To keep peace. To avoid judgment. But buried feelings don't vanish. They wait. Anger sat inside you while you stayed polite, while you stayed silent. That anger is not wrong. It is stored pain asking to be noticed. And ignoring it only makes it louder over time. When silence is praised and anger is shamed, we're taught that silence is strength, that anger is a problem. So you swallowed words. You softened reactions, but silence protected others more than it protected you. And anger became something you were told to hide. This is how people learn to turn pain inward. This is how self-blame grows. Truth matters here. Anger is not the enemy. Silence can be. apologizing for what hurt you. Stop saying sorry for being affected. Stop shrinking your pain to keep others comfortable. Let me tell you something. Pain does not need permission to exist. You don't need approval to feel hurt. You don't need agreement to feel wronged. When you stop apologizing for pain, something shifts. You stand taller. You breathe deeper. Anger is information, not a personal failure. Anger points to boundaries crossed. To needs ignored. It's a signal, not a flaw. It tells you where respect was missing. Once you listen instead of judging it, anger becomes useful. It teaches you what matters. Ignoring anger keeps you stuck. Understanding it moves you forward. Silence protects others' self-respect, protects you. Silence keeps things calm. Self-respect keeps you whole. You can choose peace without disappearing. You can speak without being cruel. Protecting yourself does not make you difficult. It makes you honest. And honesty is where freedom begins. Anger can be the doorway to freedom. Anger does not trap you. Avoiding it does. When you face it, you step into truth. And truth leads to strength, not loud strength, clear strength. Reclaiming your power after betrayal doesn't end you. It exposes what you've been carrying. Betrayal feels like the end. The day everything stopped making sense, even someone is here one moment and gone the next. One day. Life looks normal, ordinary, predictable. And then, without warning, something breaks. Someone is there in the morning, and then they are not. No explosion. No dramatic scene. Just absence. That kind of loss doesn't shout. It whispers. It slips into your day quietly and leaves everything feeling wrong. You keep replaying the last moment, the last sound of their voice. You wonder if you missed a sign, if you should have known, but there was no signal, no warning. Just empty space where certainty used to live. That moment changes how you breathe, because when someone disappears without explanation, reality itself feels unstable. Silence is louder than any goodbye. Silence can feel heavier than shouting, heavier than anger, heavier than tears, because silence gives you nothing to hold. No reason, no answer, no direction. Your mind keeps asking questions that never land anywhere. What happened? Why this way? Why now? Days move forward, but inside everything feels frozen. You are not in chaos. You are in confusion. And confusion drains you slowly. Silence doesn't hurt all at once. It hurts every day. In small ways, when there is still nothing to explain the empty space. How do you grieve someone who didn't die? Grief usually comes with an ending, a line you cross, a moment you accept. But this kind of loss gives you no ending. No place to lay the pain down. You are not sure what you are allowed to feel. Sad, angry, hopeful, tired. You grieve someone who's not gone, but not here. And that limbo wears you down. People understand loss. They don't understand disappearance. So you carry something that has no name. An unnamed pain is hard to share. No call, no note, no closure. No call, no note, no closure. Those words repeat in your mind like a slow echo. You wait for something that explains everything, but nothing comes. Life keeps moving, but you don't. You stand still inside yourself, unsure which step is allowed. This kind of waiting does not feel active. It feels heavy. Like holding your breath for years. When there's no ending, your heart does not know how to rest. It stays alert, tense, guarded. Disappearance hurts more than loss. Loss comes with certainty. Disappearance comes with doubt. Loss says, this is real. Disappearance says, maybe. And maybe can hurt longer than goodbye, because maybe keeps the door cracked open. You don't know whether to mourn or hold on. So you do both. And it breaks you slowly. The pain is not just missing them. It is living with questions that never sleep. That is why this kind of hurt cuts deeper. because it never fully lets you go. Life didn't end it, just pause. Life does not stop when something like this happens. Bills still arrive, days still pass, people still talk, but inside it feels like someone pressed pause. The picture is still there. The sound is gone. You show up. You function. You survive, but your heart is waiting for the story to continue. Time moves forward, but you don't feel like you are moving with it. You feel stuck between what was and what might be, and that pause becomes the tension you live inside. The moment where the next chapter is missing, that is where the story truly begins. The torture of not caring to mind you, the mind breaks faster than the heart in silence. Silence does not wait for permission. It moves into your thoughts and starts pulling them apart. Your heart can hold pain for a long time, but your mind keeps searching for meaning, and silence gives it none. You replay moments. You read into small details. You imagine reasons just to feel less lost. Sleep becomes shallow. Focus slips away, not because you're weak, but because uncertainty keeps tapping on your thoughts. When there are no answers, the mind works overtime, and over time, that strain becomes heavier than the loss itself. Hope can save. You are slowly consumed. You hope feels kind at first. It tells you to wait, to believe, to stay open. And sometimes hope truly helps people survive hard days, but hope without limits can also drain you. Wake up expecting something to change. You go to bed disappointed when it doesn't. Hope becomes a daily test instead of comfort. It keeps you tied to what might happen instead of what is happening. When hope has no ground to stand on, it can quietly wear you down. Not all hope heals. Some hope just delays the pain. The stories we tell ourselves to survive the quiet when there are no answers. The mind fills the gaps. That is how people cope. You tell yourself stories to make the silence easier to carry. Maybe there was a reason. Maybe they had no choice. These stories are not lies, they are shields. But over time, those stories can trap you. You start living around guesses instead of facts. The mind does this to protect you, but protection can slowly turn into self-deception. When silence lasts too long, is waiting loyalty or is it fear in disguise? Waiting sounds noble. It sounds patient. It sounds faithful, but sometimes waiting is just fear dressed up as devotion. Fear of letting go. Fear of moving forward alone. You tell yourself you're staying strong, but inside, you are afraid of what happens if you stop waiting. This question matters because it changes everything. Are you choosing to wait or are you scared to move? That answer decides whether waiting helps you or holds you back. Living suspended between maybe and never maybe keeps you awake, never scares you. So you stay in between. You don't move forward. You don't fully let go. Life becomes a holding pattern. You exist, but you don't feel present. This space between maybe and never is exhausting. It drains joy quietly. When uncertainty becomes your home, peace becomes harder to reach. And living suspended for too long starts to cost you more than you realize. When not knowing becomes a prison, not knowing can feel harmless at first. But over time, it starts to limit your life. You plan less, you hope less, you protect yourself from feeling too much without realizing it. Uncertainty becomes a cage, and you start shaping your life around it. Clarity doesn't always bring comfort, but it brings direction. And without direction, even strong people can feel trapped. That is when silence stops being neutral and starts controlling you. When the world expects you to move on, everyone has advice, none of it fits once time passes. People start talking. They offer solutions you didn't ask for. They tell you to stay busy. They tell you to think positive. They tell you it's time to move forward. Their words may be, well, meaning. But they don't match what you are carrying. Your pain does not follow a schedule. And advice given too early can feel like pressure instead of help. What they say does not fit because they are not living inside your experience. Aren't you over it yet? The cruelty of casual words. Some words are small, but they cut deep, not because they're loud, but because they dismiss your pain. People say them casually. As if healing has a finish line. Those words make you question yourself. They make you feel slow, stuck, broken, but pain does not respond to deadlines. And healing does not happen on command. When people rush your grief, they are really asking you to make them more comfortable. They moved on, life moved on, time moved on. You notice it slowly. People stop asking. They moved on. Life moved on. Time moved on, but you are still carrying something unresolved. That gap creates isolation. Not because you want distance, but because your reality no longer matches theirs. You start feeling left behind, even though you're doing your best just to stay standing. The guilt of still being here, surviving, can bring guilt, especially when someone else disappeared. You ask yourself why you are still moving forward. Why you still laugh sometimes. Why you still wake up. Part of you feels like healing is betrayal. Like letting go means you didn't care enough. This guilt keeps many people stuck longer than pain ever could. It makes strength feel like something to apologize for, but surviving is not a crime. And continuing to live is not disloyal. Let me tell you something. Grief has no deadline. Let me tell you something. There is no timer on pain. No rulebook. No right pace. You are not behind. Are not doing this wrong. Healing does not follow calendars or opinions. It follows honesty. In the moment you stop rushing yourself, something shifts. You begin to breathe again, carrying a weight no one can see. Some burdens don't show. They sit quietly inside your chest. You smile. You show up, but you're carrying something heavy. Invisible weight still affects how you walk through life. Just because others can't see it doesn't mean it's not real. You are not weak for feeling tired. You are human. And carrying unseen weight for this long means you are stronger than you realize. Surviving without answers. Building a life that was never finished. At some point you realize life is not going to pause until answers arrive. So you start building anyway, not because you feel ready, but because staying frozen hurts more. Make choices without certainty. Create routines without clarity. You learn how to live inside an unfinished story. This is not giving up. This is endurance. You stop waiting for things to make sense before you move. You move because standing still is slowly breaking you. And even without closure, something strong begins to form. Not loud, not proud. Just steady. Survival is not healing, but it keeps you alive. Survival does not feel inspiring. It feels basic, necessary, heavy. You get through the day. That's it. Healing is different. Healing asks for space and safety. Survival just says, stay here. Some days, staying alive is the only win you have, and that is enough. There is no shame in coping when healing feels too far away. You don't skip steps in pain. Survival is the bridge.